Good afternoon, and welcome to AIADA's AutoTalk. I'm your host, Rachel Soleimani. Before we get started, a few quick reminders as always. Anyone who is registered for today's program will be receiving a copy by early next week. And if you have any questions, be sure to enter them into the Q&A bar at the lower right-hand side of your interface. Today, I'm excited to welcome back our famous used car guys. Bob Grill, Senior Partner Development Manager at Carfax, Doug Haddon, Vice President of Field Initiatives at ACV, and past Vice President of AutoNation, Mike Rossman. Guys, I know you have a lot to fill us in on today, so I'll let you take it away.
Thanks, Rachel, and good morning. Well, it's morning here on the West Coast, so good morning to some and good afternoon to others. We've got a lot to cover. I'm super happy to be involved here with AIADA as I have been for about the last 12 years, and really excited to be on the same stage, well, I guess digital stage, with the likes of Bob and Mr. Mike Rossman, who is legend. If you ask me, I will tell him he is a legend because I've looked up to him for quite some time. Makes me feel younger, even though I'm not. That said, I want to jump in and we're going to talk about. I want to overview kind of like where we've been because I was talking earlier today. It seems like it's been such a crazy ride. So let's take a little look back on how we got to where we are today. My good friends at Black Book supply this to everybody. I use it quite often in some of my webinars that I do. I like the way they lay this out. If you take a look at this, first I'd like to kind of draw your attention to that dotted gray line. That's all 2 to 8 year old vehicles back when things were normal, is what I like to call it. The 2017, 2018, and 2019, that's 3 years of semi normality when it comes to the wholesale pricing, the wholesale marketplace. As you can see, there's, it's always for, as long as we've had a wholesale market in the car business, we've always had some ups and some downs. So you can take a look at that gray dotted line and you can see that, yeah, there's seasonality in there and there's things that happen. I'm sure if we go way back to way back when there was a gas crisis, when there was we pay what you pay, all that crazy stuff that we've done historically, but nothing has ever come close to what we've done in the last 4 years or so. And you can see, bringing us up to date from the 2017 to 2019, you can see the cars, trucks, SUVs, and then that black line is the one I always look at. That's kind of the overall 2 to 8 year old vehicle. You can see in the beginning, back in 2020, that's where we'll start here at the story. Things were semi-normal, a little bit better market than the average 3 years prior. And then we all know what happened right there around 3/1 of 2020. We took a dip. Something hit. That was COVID. Right after that, though, it didn't take long to figure out, hey, wait a minute, we can still sell cars. As a matter of fact, used cars are really good right now, and it went up. And then people still had a little bit of reservation. So a few more months go by and we start coming back down in wholesale prices. And then the realization of, wait a minute, what do you mean we don't have any chips? That hits and right back up we go. These are unparalleled numbers that we just never saw anything like this in the history of the market prior. It is to the point where it didn't really matter what car you were taking in trade or what number you put on it. You could take the books, you could take the market averages, and you could just throw them out the window because it didn't matter. Let me give you a little true story here. For some of you folks that have been around AIADA for many years, you'll recognize the name. Past president of a large auto group, a good friend of mine, Mr. Howard Hakes. My phone rings. I see it's Howard, so I always pick it up. Howard says, I got to tell you the story. A good friend of mine that I sold a Toyota dealer, by the way, sold a Toyota 4Runner to, top line, loaded car. Prior to COVID, he gave him a really good deal. Car was almost 20 months old, almost 2 years old. The customer no longer needed the vehicle. They no longer had a place in the mountains or whatever it was. They didn't need it anymore. They needed a sedan for their daughter that was going to college, I believe was the story. Howard pulls the original deal jacket where he sold the Forerunner and literally wrote the customer a check for the same amount. Let me say it one more time. He pulled the deal jacket that was almost 2 years old and wrote him a check for the same amount. And that's not the end of the story. There's always more to the story. More to the story is he made more money than he wanted to talk about when he sold the car hours later. So that's these spikes. And then you can take it down, and then a little bit of shock came to that. And we came back down in, mid 2021. And then I'll fast forward up to there was a place in time somewhere in around the first of 2022 that's like, well, we're going to bounce around a little bit more, but we're going to get to the end of 2022, beginning of 2023, and we're gonna take a little bit of a one of the biggest dips in a couple years. Right after that, still without enough. Now we have interest rate issues. We still don't have enough inventory, although it's getting better. Used cars now become a premium on a couple of fronts. One, interest rates are high. What's that do to payments? What do you look for? Look for a little bit less expensive car to finance. And then you can see right about September, October, we are trying to adjust the market again. And if you really take a look at this and you start all the way at the far left and you take the very top spike, you can now see, even though there's been a couple of bumps, we're now kind of, I want to say, a glide path. At least we're low altitude, the flaps are down, wheels are down, and we're about to land in what I might call maybe the new normal. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at what's happened. Mike, if you could get the next slide for me. This is also a good indicator. This one's going to go back to 2019. This kind of shows, and the same thing. You can see there 3/1 of 20. The days to turn just dropped like a rock because we thought, hey, we can still sell cars. Let's do it. But then a little bit more panic set in. Then cars sit on our lots a little bit longer. Then here we go again. It's almost an inverse of the chart we looked at before. This is our used vehicle days to turn, meaning how long did it sit before we sold it? And you can see this is almost an inverse of the prior chart. And I always have this little cube here at the last. I like to kind of mark that up a little bit because that shows kind of the last few months of what's happening. And you can see we've had some adjustments. There's been cars sitting a lot. And I think a lot of that is, and talking with a lot of you, of my friends and new dealers out there, it's like I have to have vehicles that I can sell for a reasonable payment, reasonable down payment, and a reasonable payment. So folks are starting to hold on to those less expensive cars longer than normal so they can have that selection and they can get that customer into a car. Because think about what happened on that previous chart with more money, giving someone the same amount they paid for the vehicle 2 years prior when it was new. Everybody was, and I don't want to say taking advantage of a customer, but the majority of folks were taking advantage of the market. It's a market of supply and demand. So there were some folks out there that were paying premiums for vehicles. Now we're trying to adjust that. Now we're trying to look at what's the payment on this vehicle, but we're also looking at a much better supply of new cars. So Mike, let me just take a look at the next slide. Thank you. So this is a little bit not inverse, but almost a carbon copy of the original, which is pricing. So is pricing always, what follows pricing is sell-through rate at auctions. And you can see we kind of bounced around the same thing, same big giant dip for COVID. At basically the auctions were closed. The physical auctions had to close down. So that will definitely affect the sell-through rate when you're not open. And then you can see the quick recovery. Hey, we got to get these things open. We got to sell wholesale digitally. We got to do all kinds of things to get these vehicles moving. And then again, you can see kind of the same spikes that all the others have had. At this point, we may be headed for, again, almost whatever the new normal is going to be. I think we're almost there. There's still a little bit of adjustment in my mind, but I think we're getting much closer. So, Mike, if you go to the next slide. So now we kind of looked at the history. We know what got us here. We may or may not have taken a little bit of advantage of the market at the time. But what do we do now? Before we didn't care what we did, but today we have to have what I call true inventory management. What is true inventory management? I'll tell you. It's having a plan to maximize gross profit on every single. I don't care if it's a trade. I don't care if you bought it at the auction, bought it off the street, which by the way is a huge piece to this right now, is getting that vehicle out of the customer's driveway and into your lot to sell. But it doesn't matter where the acquisition happened, and it doesn't matter if you're going to sell it retail or you're going to sell it wholesale. But you better have a plan to maximize the profitability on every single car before the ink on that check dries. Now, I get it. I can't even remember the last time I wrote a check either, but that's the point. So let's do a quick kind of high level kind of reminder of what some of the things that we need to look at. And today, this is kind of the standard. Many of you guys are understocked. And what's that do? Well, if you want to sell 100 cars today, you have 100 inventory. Well, you got to multiply that by the 125, and 125 is simply 15 turns a year versus 12 turns a year. So that's 30-day average. Well, 1.25 is less. So I want to sell 150 cars. I have 100 in stock, and I want to turn my inventory 15 times a year. Well, I need 125 cars sold isn't going to get me to my 150. I missed that mark because I didn't have enough vehicles in stock. So what's that look like? Let's go to the next one, please. So I take my store's goal, however many cars you want to sell, time your average turn rate, and that tells you what your inventory is going to be. That's the inventory that you need. So the goal is 150. Day one inventory is 120. I want to do 15 turns a year. Again, it's 1.25. Now I can get to my 150, and that equals hitting my goal. So again, high level, easy math. But let's go to the next screen if we could, Mike. Bob. What is that right inventory? I can't just go out and buy any inventory anymore. It doesn't work. Before I could go to the auction, I could go to a digital auction, I could push all the buttons, the cars could show up, I could wash them, sell them, and I'd make money. That doesn't work anymore. Now we have to worry about things like interest rates, floor plan. I was talking to somebody the other day, floor plan credit. What's that? We don't get that anymore. It actually costs money. So what is that right inventory? Let's talk about it for a second. It's got to be based on a few things. One, fact. That's something that a lot of folks kind of miss. A lot of inventory management systems out there. It's kind of what did I do with those types of vehicles? I'll dig into that in a second. And the market, what's happening in the marketplace? What's selling hot? What don't I have many? And now, the last one is this AI stuff, and we'll get into that for just a minute here shortly. But also know your store's DNA. What I mean by your store's DNA, I don't know, if you're a Toyota store and you're selling a lot of Ford F-150s, why is that? Well, yeah, it's a popular car, but you know what? Maybe your used car manager came from a Ford store. Maybe the Ford store there's a Ford store right across the street, and people think that if they go to the Toyota store, they're going to get a better deal. Maybe it's the way how close your dealership is to the freeway. Maybe it's how many plants you have out front. Maybe it's the entirety of your staff and how they treat the customer. You have a store DNA. You will do better with some vehicles than others, but you have to study and understand it. Market vehicles aren't always the right decision. Just because the guy across the street can sell a whole bunch of different kinds of used cars, that doesn't necessarily mean you will do as well. So basically the wrong car priced right, still the wrong car. If they can sell them across the street, you may not be able to because you got to dig into the facts. So how are we going to find our right inventory? Stock it based on facts. Secondly, use market decisions. If they're hot and there's not many of them, then that might be a good choice, but you got to do some homework. And lastly, it's called speculation or gut. That's the way I used to do it. I would take in when I was a young man as a used car manager. I thought, man, I was great. I could tell you what a car was worth in 5 seconds. I had a book in my back pocket. I could pull it out and I'd look at it. I'd take whatever that car was worth. If it had a high mileage on it, I would triple the deduct for high mileage and then cut it in half again. And that's what the car was worth. I mean, that's how we used to do it. I would take the dealer's checkbook to the auction. I would gamble all of the money in the account based on, how I kind of felt about each car by gut. That does not work. We can't do that anymore. Can we go to the next one, please? So stocking on facts. And again, I'm going to go through this pretty quick. If you look at this, this is based on, hey, I got a Chevy Traverse in there's a 2020 Chevy Traverse. I've sold two. I have none in stock. That means I need to, right? A 2018, I have one in stock. I've sold one. I have none in stock. I need one. You kind of catch what's going on here. This is all based on data. What have I sold? How many do I have? How many do I need? Super easy stuff. Okay, next one. This is where you really start getting into the weeds. This is the one that needs some convincing for some of you used car managers out there. Take a look at grosses and then dig into the details. So 2019, I sold 16 2019. I think this is Chevy trucks, Chevy 1500s. 2019, I sold 16 of them. I averaged $3,100 worth of gross. I could turn those in 37 days. I have three in stock. My annual ROI, and that's something that hopefully I'll be able to cover in depth in another webinar, because annual ROI nobody really looks at, and it's super important. And what the market share is, how many of them are out there, what's my competition. Then you can move. I'm not going to do all these because it'll take too long, but you can see where we're going with this. You can even get into trim and color analysis. I've sold 12. I average $4,500 a copy. Takes me 35 days to sell. I've had 4 sales in the last 30 days, and I got 3 in stock. 4,500 a copy, 35-day average turn. Yeah, probably need a few of those. I'm not going to finish the rest of it, but you get the point. It's talking about the facts. And then if you want to talk about, that's the first thing. Then if you want to talk about, what's in the marketplace, obviously you want to dig in, find out how many are out there, how many are selling, best guess at what the average price is sold, and what the mileage is. And if there's none out there and there's lots of sales, then yep, I would definitely be digging in and trying to find those from current customers, find those off of customers' lots or customers' driveways. And lastly, I'd put in a saved search for those in any of the auctions that I visit. And then I think I got a couple more. I know I'm going fast. Nope, that's it. That's it for me. Hopefully I didn't go too fast, but frankly, I want to hear what Mike and Bob have to say, because I value every word they say. Guys, I'm going to turn it over to you, Bob. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Doug. As always, it's always a pleasure listening to you and your take on the market. Certainly, all that data has to be taken into account if you're going to set up a good business plan. And we appreciate you sharing the stage with us today. And as always, we're always happy to be with AIADA, and we're looking forward to this. We're going to take a little different turn on the event today. We're going to look more in the dealership world and the sales world. So we'll get quick and we'll go through it. Right now, new car supply is up, right? In fact, it's up to almost pre-COVID numbers. The national average right now is an 80-day supply. You can see on the screen, depending on your brand, you may be more or less than that. But certainly we're getting back to the numbers that we were pre-COVID. So what's that mean? It means that customers that have been kind of on the shelf a little bit on new cars because there hasn't been a lot of them are getting excited again. They want to come in. But when we look at it, we need to remember a little bit. Doug alluded to this earlier on the slide, and we want to stay here for just a second. Our customers, our new car customers, our loyal customers who do that traditional trade cycle of 36 to 48 months coming in and wanting the new car. Well, if we look at these same customers coming in today, 4 years ago, when the market was what the market was, Doug alluded to this earlier, our gross profit on new vehicles went up 22%. All right, so the market demand was the market demand. We're able to make a little more money on our new car sales. However, it's kind of like the pull ahead programs, right? We can get a little fatter today, but that does hurt us in the future. So let's plan for it and let's not let that hurt us. When we look at our used car lots, period, what sells well new sold well used, right? So if it sells well new, it'll sell well used. But we also know that 50% point, if it's a new Infiniti QX60 today for 60,000, when that same Infiniti 60 is on your lot for 30,000, we know that's when it sells the fastest. These vehicles are typically 4 to 6 years old because that's how long it takes to be able to retail for 50% of what it retailed for when it was new. So again, let's put all the pieces together. These 4 to 6 year old vehicles are the traditional trade-ins of our new car customers we sold 4 and 5 years ago when we were making a little bit more money on them. On average, they're going to have 12,000 miles a year or less, and they're going to be black, white, silver, or gray. You look at 80% of what sells in the US, it's black, white, silver, or gray. What's the challenge to all these listings? You're not going to find these at an auction. You can go to every auction house in the country with a car hauler and an empty checkbook, and you're not coming home with any vehicles. You need to trade for these. We're going to teach you how to do that in just a minute. Mike, I know you have a little passion for what we're talking about. You want to add to the conversation?
Well, it certainly is an important factor that we try to stock our lots. But the big thing that I look at, and we're going to get into in a little more detail later, is, have we really refined our appraisal process, and do we have we demand to know what our closing ratio is for our salespeople, but do we know what it is for our at-bats at the used car lot? Do we know what our closing average is? And what can we do to improve our closing ratio? And I think that we're going to dig into that a little bit later here, but it's important to know that because the trades we know are going to sell for faster and for more money. And so I think that's a critical part of what we need to look at.
Yeah, it's funny, Mike, when you look at what actually sold, now we don't have 2023 data yet, right? It hasn't been released yet. But if we look at 2022, and it's been kind of the similar market, what actually sold, according to NADA, what we actually sold on our used car lots were trade-ins. Consumers still prefer 2 to 1 a personal owned vehicle, right? They know that if a person owned it, that's going to be in decent shape. You go to any parking lot, 90% of the cars in that parking lot are in good shape. We continue to outsell purchases 2 to 1 with trade-ins. But if we look at what we always have in stock, right? When we always look at what's in stock, it's just the opposite of where it needs to be. Why does it matter? Because the trade-in turns 10 days faster and averages $1,000 more profit. So how do we work on that, right? Well, we need to look at who's trading in the vehicle. We need to look at our buyers, and this is one of the categories we promised to deliver today on the webinar, and so here we go. If we look at pre-COVID versus post-COVID and what is the new norm, buyers are dramatically different. First of all, 70% of today's buyers are millennial or younger, millennial or Gen Z, and only 30% now are the Gen X and boomers, okay? This was a CDK study done right in 2024 of buyers that actually bought vehicles. Again, 70% of your traffic coming into your store are millennial or Gen Z, and only 30% are Gen X and boomers, and they definitely buy different. According to AutoWeek, right? According to AutoWeek, they no longer are interested in buying online. That's been a shiny object for a number of years. Everyone's been kind of chasing that 100% online. They absolutely don't want to do it. The Gen Zs, 22% of Gen Z said it was very difficult to buy a car fully online, and they're just simply not going to do it. If we look at stats, Hyundai Motor Car came out and said that 95% of their purchases happen at the dealership. 95% happen at the dealership. And here's the biggest one we want to share with you about today's consumers. According to Google, right? If it's online, you measure it by Google. Reliability searches are up over 70% in the last 2 years. 70%. If something changes by 5%, everyone goes crazy and chases it. We're talking 70% reliability searches in the last 2 years. This one just came out. You can see it's January of 2024. Only 7% of car buyers in 2023 completed all the steps online. Okay, only 7%. of car buyers in 2023 completed all the steps online. Used vehicle buyers were more likely to cite an in-person as the solution. So when you look at the total online sale, everything completed online, new cars are a little more comfortable to the consumer than used cars. New cars, there's not going to be a lot of variance to it. They can kind of predict what they're buying. Used cars still take that look and that feel and that drive and the feel of the wheel. They still want to come to the dealership. So it matters how we market to them, right? They want to come to the dealership. Let's make that as friendly as possible. Mike, I know you have a few things to add to this.
Well, it's, we go back and look at my last few years before I retired, and we were really chasing that shiny object called online. That was going to be the thing of the future. But the reality of it is, it turns out that people still want to feel and touch these cars, particularly used cars, because of condition. And you can take all the pictures you want, do all that sort of thing, and that certainly will invite someone to come and shop your showroom, but you're going to have to be a lot sharper at the store today, and we're going to have to sell harder than we were selling back in 20 when people were just buying the cars and paying the big money for them. I talked to a lot of salespeople and they said, boy, it's been easy. Well, that's going to change. It's going to be harder, and we're going to have to get better at our closing skills at the store. And the other thing that's going to be of interest is, payments now are getting so critical that we're going to have to look at ways that we can use our appraisal process to help us convince customers that they're actually going to pay less for their car because of what they're going to have to spend to recondition the vehicle they're driving today. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well.
Thanks for that, Mike. Our friends at Cox also tell us that the majority of your first point of contact with the consumer, and this speaks to exactly what the stats have been telling us, 54%, if you look at the light blue, which is used, 54% of the initial contact with the dealership is at the front door. It's at the front door. It's a walk-in. It's not through phone and phone is 28%, and if you listen to your phone calls, we know that the majority of those are just asking, is it still available? And of course, 13% through email. Those are both fading, okay? So what is it they want to know? What does the new buyer want to know? Well, our traditional sales process at the dealership, at the physical dealership, was Foursquare based. It had been this way for 50, 60, 70 years. But we give these all online now. The dealers today, through COVID to survive, had to realize everything had to be done online for information because the consumer couldn't come to the dealership. So now today, if you look at what was traditionally the conversation, they get their best market price, right? Everyone's vAuto market driven, putting your best price out there. They can get their trade allowance. 10 different sources will give them what their trade is worth. Absolutely today, a consumer can go and get their credit pulled, put how much down they want to put, and know what their payment is. So at the dealership, the conversation had to change. You're not going to take all this information and then have the identical conversation at your dealership. So in talking to dealers and talking to salespeople, consumers want to know future costs, the new fifth square. So there is no predictor of the future, right? There is no crystal ball, but the best predictor of the future is the past, right? No such thing as a crystal ball, but the best predictor of the future is absolutely the past. So what are they asking? Well, look at the first thing they're asking. Where did you get the vehicle? For 4 or 5 years now, we've been telling them we don't have any inventory. So all of a sudden we have a car to sell. Of course, their first question is going to be, where did you get it? But then they want to know who owned it. Was it taken care of? What did you find wrong with it? What did you repair? Look at the next two. These are their big ticket items once they own the vehicle. So they look at the car online, they decide to come look at it, they come look at it, and it's what they're looking to buy. But they want to know, once I take delivery of it, what are my initial big costs? Well, brakes and tires are traditionally the two big points of cost. So they want to know, did you put brakes on it? When am I going to have to? Did you replace the tires? When am I going to have to? And does it come with an extended warranty? Now, you are your best supply of inventory. You are your best source, right? Doug showed you some great tools to know what's showing and what's selling in the marketplace. Know this for sure. You are your best source of inventory, okay? Your best location to get that inventory is out of your service department. Out of your service department. This is a study done by our friends at Toyota on a traditional ownership of 42 months. 86% of those that were loyal to your service department returned to purchase the next vehicle. So they bought it new from you, they used your service department, did all the regular service and maintenance at your service department. Now that they're ready for their next vehicle, 86% of the time they return to you. Okay, your service equals your sales. All right. And what are those cars? They're as good as it gets. They're top of the line, what sells best, sells the fastest for the most money. It's homegrown inventory. What is that? It was a new car that you sold. You did all the service and maintenance. It got traded back in or lease returned. You did all the reconditioning, and now it's for sale in your used car inventory. This, my friends, is as good as it gets. It's number one on the consumer sought after list, all right? But you need to get them out of your service department so you have all the history. Remember, as these customers are coming in with these cars we sold them 4 and 5 years ago, there are elements that make a vehicle worth more, and there are elements that make a vehicle worth less. Every vehicle has a unique history and a unique value. So don't just arbitrarily look at this inventory being brought to your doorstep and look at an average book and look at an average market. These are above average vehicles. You know, they're going to be the one owner vehicle. In most cases, they won't have accidents. It was personally owned, well maintained service records, all at your dealership. Step up for these cars. We have been begging for inventory for 4 or 5 years. Now it's being delivered to our doorstep. Let's not miss it. Okay? Mike, what should we do with the appraisals? You have a lot of passion for this.
Well, it is more than just a number, you know. I'd start off first by saying that the most important thing is your used car manager. He's really critical to how many cars you're going to sell on the new car lot and on the used car lot. So this person has to be on top of his game. And I think we pointed that out today. But, you know, you can use your appraisal for so many things. You can use it to help you close. I mean, just think about it. If you use your appraisal properly, show what you're going to do to that car when you bring it into your store, which is what customers are going to demand when they try to buy it from your store. You can help your closing ratio with your salespeople. Let's say you come up with $1,200 that you need to spend on that car to recondition it. The salesperson should present that to the customer that is trying to trade it in and make him understand that he is going to have to spend that, and they'll agree. You know, they know they're going to have to buy tires at maybe $1,200 or whatever the case is, put new brakes on it. He's running out of warranty, whatever those factors are. But think about that. That's $100 a month. So if you're trying to sell him a new car at a higher payment of $100, he's really even for the next year, right? Because he's going to have to spend that $1,200 on the car if he keeps it, and it's not going to come in $100 increments either. It's going to be $500 one month, so his payment's going to be $350 plus the $500. He's going to spend $850 that month. So that's how you use the appraisal to help your salespeople understand the value, and they can use that to help close the customers. But on the other hand, if you're a good, strong used car manager, you don't want to have to spend your time going over that car after it comes back in after you've traded for it. So if using your appraisal properly, you wouldn't have to touch that trade again. You could simply put that appraisal on the dashboard of the car and take it to your service department. They would understand that you want to spend $1,200 doing these things to the car. And how do I control my gross profit? Same thing. I say it cost me $1,200 to fix it. If I'm getting a bill for $2,000 from the service department, we're not communicating right. They're going into my gross profit the way I view it. Now, there are going to be some circumstances where things come up and that's going to happen. But for the most part, you should know as a used car director how good you're doing at looking at that car, evaluating it, and on the appraisal, your dollars and cents should translate into how much you spend in your service department. If there's a big gap one way or the other, if you're way over, you say you could spend 12 and they only spend 5, then you're shorting the customer trading and maybe you're missing that car. So the other thing I would do too is keep my batting average. What am I trading for? And I would do that by brand. You'll find that all of us have a little brand bias, I guess you would call it, where some vehicles we don't really care for that much. In that case, a lot of times what happens is I don't trade for those cars because me personally, I don't like them. Well, I can't do that. I've just got to use the market to let me know what the values are of those cars and step up and trade for them. And if it's my own car line, I'm going to trade for it every time with a good loyal service customer. I'm going to pay whatever it takes to get that car because I know I'll sell it fast. It'll turn quickly and we'll make a lot of money on it. So
Thanks for that, Mike. So we'll wrap this up here in just a couple of minutes. We'll be all set. We want to put everything we learned today into practice. We want to give you a little support from Dale Pollock. We're telling you to step up on these trades. We expect them to be retailed. So if we step up on them and we put them where they belong retail-wise, we're going to be above market a little bit. Well, here's some reassurance from Dale Pollock, just telling you that you don't need VDPs. This isn't about traffic. These vehicles sell. So put them where they belong, step up, and don't be afraid to do it. So how do we put it into play? We told you that every unique vehicle is unique, so let's just take a look at it. You look at the report. All these are your service and maintenance records, all lending to future costs, right? We said the best predictor of the future is the past. A consumer understands that if a vehicle's been well taken care of, it's less likely to break down. All we need to do is put it into our description of the vehicle to set our vehicle apart. Take your time, take just 30 seconds and read this. All right, just arrived. This beautiful personal lease, accident-free, one owner Toyota Highlander. We leased this Highlander to its original owner. The customer liked doing business with us and had our service department take care of it. Our Toyota certified mechanics have taken care of it its whole life and have done all the regular service and maintenance. We know this Highlander better than anyone and knew it would make the perfect Toyota certified vehicle. We put it through the 160-point certified inspection, and now it comes with a 12-month, 12,000-mile comprehensive and a 7-year, 100,000-mile powertrain, along with 24-hour roadside assistance. Don't miss out on this well-maintained Highlander, price below Carfax history value. So there again, use your descriptions to set your vehicle apart. Use your description as a conversation with the consumer. We know the first time we're going to meet them is at our door. Give them a reason to come in. And with that, Rachel, we're going to say thank you and hand it back to you.
Doug, Bob, Mike, thanks so much for joining us today. We always love having you on. Again, you will all be receiving a copy of this webinar by early next week. To those on the line, join us back here next Tuesday, April 16th at 2 p.m. Eastern as Erin Kerrigan of Kerrigan Advisors fills us in on the 2024 buy-sell market, expectations on valuation and transaction activity. For more information about AIADA, visit aiada.org. Thanks for tuning in and have a great day, everyone.